Van life is very prominent in the rock climbing community, and during the holiday seasons in 2019, I was watching Free Solo with my family, and at that time I had already watched a ton of van life videos on YouTube, and when we were watching the documentary, every time there was a shot with Alex Honnold and his van, I mentioned to my family, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if I lived in a van? And then my aunt who was there, she said that I should try it and it was a good idea. So maybe 6 to 9 months, I started looking for a van online. I eventually found a website, a government auctions website, and I found my van there, and it was in Tennessee. It needed to be fixed a little bit, so I looked for a mechanic in the area, and someone by the name of Dr. A, who lived in South Carolina, which is right next to Tennessee. I reached out to him and he told me that he was gonna fix the van for me. I had it towed to his house and he fixed it for a couple months, and then I flew out to South Carolina, and then I drove it back to California. When I first started van life, I didn't feel free. That's when I felt really scared and alone. I felt scared that I would get caught because it's technically illegal to sleep in your car in California. So in the beginning, I felt so scared. Like probably the quality of my sleep was not as good as it should have been. But over time, that fear, that anxiety went away because nothing ever happened. When you're afraid and you're nervous and you're anxious, like, you are kind of being controlled by your emotions, right? So you won't feel free. So that freedom didn't come. It's with van life, the freedom, it doesn't just, you don't just get it because you live in a van. You have to earn it. You have to overcome your fears in order to gain freedom. And that's probably something that is true about anything, right? It's not just van life. It's like, if in any aspect of your life you are afraid of something, you'll never be free. If you're nervous, if you're anxious, if you're scared, you'll never be free. Yeah, you'll never be able to enter into like a flow state. You'll never be able to freestyle. Yeah. So you have to overcome your fears. I mean, you know, there's a lesson that I learned in rock climbing, and that is like, when you're face to face with your weakness, like, there's only two options, right? One is you give up, or the other one is you try to fight past your weakness. So, for example, what I'm talking about is like when you're rock climbing and and you start getting really tired, like, you can always like your arms hurt a lot, right? When you're rock climbing, it hurts a lot. So typically, inexperienced rock climber, they will give up and they'll let go and then they'll take a break. But then, you know, that's in the face of your weakness is like an opportunity to develop strength. And so it's like, I mean, that's just one of the lessons I learned. It's like in those moments where everything hurts, just try to make one more move. Try to make one more move, yeah. And I think that directly that gives you self-confidence in other aspects of your life. I mean, another thing that I was really afraid of in the beginning of doing van life was that everything I own is in this van. So every time I stepped away from my van, I was like super worried, like, oh, what if someone breaks into my van and they steal everything? If someone steals my van, I don't have anything anymore, right? Literally my entire life is in this van. If someone steals it, everything is gone. So I was really scared about that in the beginning. And so yeah, this became like my space, and I was like very protective and like territorial. It's like, oh, like that person, he's looking at my van, like, oh, I'm not gonna leave anymore. Like, I'm just gonna stay, or I'm gonna drive away. That's what I always do. If I came to a place and I saw someone that was sketchy, I'll be like, oh, I don't like this place, I'm gonna drive somewhere else. But again, like over time, that fear went away. And I think that actually, instead of having my own space, that boundary dissolved. And it's like, because I can park anywhere and call that my home, I found that I didn't care about my space. I guess another way of putting it is like the diameter of the space that I called my own only expanded, right? It's like, I don't know, it's like hopefully one day I'll be able to call the entire planet my space, right? Yeah. Most people are comfortable with being dependent on other people. That's how most people live. Like from the moment you're born, you're dependent on your parents, and then for some people it's like they go to college. That this is a normal life, right? It's like you're born, you live with your parents, you go to college, you have roommates, and then now we're living in a time where the rent is so expensive that after college you can't afford to live by yourself, so you have to live with other people. So I actually think that being able to live by yourself is a privilege in today's society, given the economic situation, because it's so expensive everywhere, and on a minimum wage job, it's almost impossible to live by yourself. So I think that I'm privileged to be able to live by myself, even if it is in a van. I still get the experience of learning to be independent. So having started van life, I realized that I was rushing all the time. I first noticed this at work, where we have a very limited amount of free parking. And so before van life, I would go to the parking spot, and if it was full, I would maybe wait at most a couple of minutes before I got frustrated, and then I moved to the paid parking area. But now I don't mind waiting for like 30 minutes or even an hour to get the free parking. So because of van life, I feel like I have been freed from time, in a sense. I feel freed from the rat race, and I underemphasize the importance of having a precise destination. I think most people think that van life is like what they see on YouTube and Instagram, #vanlife. They think of the traveling and meeting new people and having fun and being free. But I've come to realize that van life is about patience and being considerate and being comfortable with living in small spaces and having a minimalistic lifestyle. I've come to realize through van life that being free is quiet and lonely, and those who cannot accept the process of freedom will become addicts to distraction and become further lost in their attempts to find themselves, to become centered and grounded in truth.